welcome to the show, Dad.
You're welcome.
And we are going to talk about something that's near and dear to our hearts, and that's the Green Bay Packers. We were both born and raised Packers fans, and it's been a pretty crazy offseason, like it has been in recent years. As Packer fans, I would like to say I'm getting a little emotionally drained by everything that happens over the past few years, and it usually begins and ends with our quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. That's a lot of money that we just paid out to him.
It sure is. I can't even relate to that kind of money. It's more than I can comprehend, and I haven't enjoyed these last couple of years with him and I guess his demands, and I'm just not used to in the old days. I'm way back from the Lombardi era, so I'm not used to players having this kind of power.
Yeah, I mean, the contract that he just signed basically is 3 years, $150 million, with 101 of it guaranteed and 150 guaranteed if he gets injured. You see a lot of other, I'm not going to say a lot of other, you see Tom Brady taking pay cuts. And Tom Brady keeps winning Super Bowls, and he just returned, and we'll touch on that here a little bit later. With Green Bay needing to sign guys like Devontae Adams, who's already said he's not going to play under the franchise tag, which basically has put him at $20.5 million, and a guy like Christian Kirk that played for the Arizona Cardinals last year, who's never even had a 1,000-yard season, is now getting paid $21 million a year. I completely understand why Devontae wouldn't want to play under the franchise tag. But with guys like him that we need to re-sign, with guys like Jair Alexander that we want to re-sign, we want to re-sign Rasul Douglas, who had an outstanding season for us last year, and a few other guys that we'd like to fit under that salary cap. Wouldn't you think, with everything that Aaron has done, at this point, all he has left to do is get the Super Bowl rings? Why would you not take a pay cut at this point to try to improve your chances to pump up your legacy by getting some more Super Bowl rings?
I have no idea. The man is worth $120 or $30 million already. I don't think that most people have, any comprehension about that much money. And when you say, well, Adams is only going to play for $120.5 million, that sounds just ridiculous to most people too. But the market says that if this fella from Arizona is worth $21 million, Devontae should be worth
35,
a whole lot more millions than what he is. But I'm with you. I think that if Rodgers could get a couple more weapons, or we could get some real help on our defense, I would think that he would be if it was me or Tom Brady, I guess, that he would be very, very willing to push a few of his millions over to the Packers so that they could sign some of these players or keep some of these players that would help them win a Super Bowl. That should be more important to him, I think, than a few $1 million one way or another with a guy that's worth well over $100 million already.
I would agree with that 110%. You see some guys. Aaron has said that he doesn't want to play without Devontae Adams and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Okay, well, here's your perfect opportunity to show how important that is to you. Take a pay cut. If Aaron plays for about $10 million less a year, you can keep both of them. You can. By the way, the one guy that Devontae Adams was upset about that he wasn't getting paid more than out of Arizona, DeAndre Hopkins, just restructured his deal to take less money. So now they can get above that number with Devontae Adams. To get Valdes-Scantling and Devontae Adams in there, they've already offered a second-round tender to Alan Lazard, where he's making going to be making $4 million if somebody else doesn't gobble him up. He's a restricted free agent. They've got Robert Tonyan coming back off of a torn ACL. I think they're going to do everything they can to re-sign him. The year before he tore his ACL, he led the NFL with touchdown receptions among all tight ends. I don't care if your name is Darren Waller or Travis Kelce or Rob Gronkowski, Robert Tonyan, or George Kittle for that matter, Robert Tonyan's best friend, Robert Tonyan led the NFL in touchdown catches that year among tight ends. So he's obviously beginning to make a name for himself in the tight end market. So that's a person that we did not have for the majority of last year. We did not have our big left tackle, David Bakhtiari, for the entire year. We did not have Jair Alexander for the majority of the season. All those guys are returning, along with the rookie Eric Stokes at cornerback. If we can re-sign Rasul Douglas, we already re-signed Devondre Campbell. We gave him the bag. He got $50 million over 5 years. Our inside linebacker, which, as you and I spoke of before we came on the broadcast today, all the statistics that have come out have shown that Devondre Campbell is by far the best inside linebacker statistically that Green Bay has had since all the way going back to Ray Nitschke, which is impressive because Ray Nitschke is obviously in the Hall of Fame, and Green Bay has not had an inside linebacker like Nitschke since Nitschke until this guy showed up. So it's good to get him back.
Well, that he's one of the best players in the league at his position, and he's going to make $10 million.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like peanuts compared to what you're talking about these quarterbacks and receivers and stuff are making. That seems not fair to me, but if Aaron Rodgers really wants to endear himself to his teammates and that locker room, if he would give up $10-15 million of his salary so he can keep Lazard and Scantling and Davante Adams, I'm sure that would more than cover it, and it certainly wouldn't reduce his lifestyle by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, I would agree with that. I think that's going to be something that they're going to have to look at over the next few days. Green Bay still has some work to do to fully get under the salary cap. As we spoke about, they have already cut Zadarius Smith, who is going to count, I believe, $27 million against the salary cap this year, and they also cut offensive tackle Billy Turner. Both of those positions, though, Green Bay has a lot of depth at. Pass rusher and offensive line, Green Bay's real strong in both of those positions. So losing those guys, it's never a good time to lose somebody that's as talented as either one of those two. But those two guys, you can plug in a different player that has pretty close to equal amount of talent. Rashawn Gary came on and had an absolute monster year last year, and he basically plays the same exact position as Zadarius Smith. You still have Preston Smith and Whitney Merciless that it looks like they're going to be doing everything they can to try to bring back on the other side of the field, and Rashawn Gary will be...
Merciless impressed me last year.
Yeah, and how fast he was able to come back from injury to play in that playoff game. So if we've got that kind of depth at the pass rushing position, and then they have several options. They've got the young kid, Yash Nyman, who played both right tackle and left tackle. They've got Dennis Kelly, who came over from Tennessee, if they're able to re-sign him. You can even bump Elgin Jenkins out to right tackle. He's normally our left guard, but we've got so much depth at the guard position now with guys like John Runyon and Lucas Patrick if we re-sign him. So there's definitely some options there because, of course, we've got Royce Newman, who was a rookie last year, who's coming back at guard out of Ole Miss, and then the rookie from last year who's our starting center, Josh Myers. So depth is something that Green Bay has a lot of at the offensive line position, plus we have the draft coming up, and Green Bay always chooses one or two guys in the draft at offensive line. So
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Actually, a couple of questions. with trying to fit these people under the salary cap and that sort of thing, are we going to be able to go after any free agents of consequence?
It sounds like they're going to try. I think that's what the restructuring of all of these deals. They're going to try to get an extension done on Jair Alexander. They obviously want to sign Devontae to a long-term deal and get some of these other guys re-signed. If they can do all of this and backload these contracts, General Manager Brian Gutekunst and Russ Ball, who's pretty much their money guy, have already said that if they can get Aaron to re-sign, which they just did today, he just signed the contract today, that they were going to do with Aaron these last few years of his career exactly what New Orleans did with Drew Brees, where they were basically going to just reload and load up the credit card, so to speak, the last few years that he's there. So they're going to do this backloading of the contracts or however they do that. And we talked about how by the year 2025, the salary cap is supposed to be $260 million as opposed to this year where I think it's like 210 or something like that. So you can do some mathematical gymnastics over the next few years to try to fit it all in properly to make sure that you get these guys paid correctly, so you can pay them this amount this year, a little bit more next year, a little bit more the year after that, because the salary cap keeps going up. And obviously these guys are a lot smarter than you and I put together, so they can figure out how to make that money situation work. I've heard two names already on the wide receiver front that are both still out there on the market. Jarvis Landry got released by the Cleveland Browns. I'd love to see him in a Packers uniform. And also Allen Robinson from the Chicago Bears. I would love to see him in a Packers uniform. Either one of those two guys, right off the bat, day one, is our number 2 wide receiver. Those guys are bona fide number 1 wide receivers on a lot of other teams that don't have a guy named Devontae on it. So,
okay, the basically guys like Scantling and Lassard are going to be backups.
Oh yeah. If Jarvis Landry or Allen Robinson get signed by Green Bay, then Lazard, Scantling, Randall Cobb, Amari Cooper from last year, the rookie out of Clemson, they'll be relegated to 3rd, 4th, and 5th on the depth chart. They'll still be used, but that will be the bona fide number 2 receiver that Green Bay's always been screaming of. That's the one that makes it so you can't double team Devontae every single play. If you have Jarvis Landry on the other side of the field from Devontae Adams, that should almost be illegal, because Jarvis Landry is a ridiculously good wide receiver in the NFL. A lot of people feel like he was better than Odell Beckham in Cleveland from the beginning and was always their number 1 wide receiver. So if Green Bay is somehow able to sign Jarvis Landry to go along with Devontae Adams, if they sign Jarvis Landry, I don't believe we'll be able to re-sign Marquez Valdez-Scantling, but I think Aaron will be fine if we get Landry and don't keep Scantling. But if we don't get a big name and we also lose Scantling, I think you're going to see another instance of A-Rod probably throwing an emotional fit again because he won't get what he wants. But again,
he wants to keep Scantling, though.
He wants to keep Scantling. He would love to keep Scantling, and I think a lot of that is because he doesn't think Green Bay is going to go out and get him a number 2, get him a good number 2. But again, like I said, we have the draft coming up, but Green Bay I can't remember the last time Green Bay took a skill position player other than quarterback in the first round.
Well, we've got what's going to happen? Douglas hasn't signed, has he?
Rasul Douglas? No, the cornerback. Douglas has not signed yet, but
he was awfully good last year.
Yeah, he was. And if you can have an entire season with Jair Alexander back, plus the rookie Eric Stokes, who runs a 4.3, who had an extremely good season last year, then you have Rasul Douglas, if you can get him re-signed, and then our 2 safeties, Amos and Savage, that's one hell of a secondary. That's as good of a secondary as there is in the NFL. You add that to our pass rush, it's going to make Green Bay a very, very, very difficult team to throw the football on. especially if they can re-sign a Chandon Sullivan, who is our nickelback last year, and get a couple other role players in there. They'll probably let go of Kevin King, which at this point it's probably time to do that anyway. He can't stay healthy. He's the one who got burned against the Buccaneers a couple years ago in the playoffs. But at that point, we probably wouldn't need King. But if you have those guys in the secondary, meaning Alexander, Rasul Douglas, the rookie from last year out of Georgia, Eric Stokes, Darnell Savage, and Adrian Amos. We don't need King then.
No,
that's a scary secondary with Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, and Whitney Merciless rushing the passer, and that's not even talking about what we might get in the draft. So
there's something I don't know much about at this point. Do you? Have you looked at any of these mock draft situations where who might be available to the Packers, and what is their 20? Are they picking 28th or 29th?
Yeah, they're going to be the end of the first round again. And honestly, Dad, right now I don't know, because we haven't been able to see what free agency looks like. If they don't land a Jarvis Landry or a wide receiver like that, then that ups our chances of taking a wide receiver with the first round. But if Green Bay goes out and they land Jarvis Landry, then more than likely that first round draft pick isn't going to be a wide receiver anymore. It'll probably be something like
they might have to give it up to get Landry.
Or, possible. Well, no, Landry's a free agent.
Yeah.
Landry's a free agent, so they won't have to give up anything to get him.
Oh, great. That sounds wonderful.
So, the guys that I'm talking about right now are unrestricted free agents. So, Robinson's a free agent. Landry's a free agent. So, Green Bay wouldn't have to give anything up except money to get these guys. But they've got to figure out how to do the mathematical gymnastics in the back room there. But I think it should be easier now that Aaron has signed his contract. Now they can start working on Devontae's and get his done, so they can start getting all this other stuff worked out, or get the other stuff worked out so they can get Devontae's done. I
would think that these other receivers would want to look around and see which teams have the best chance of going to the Super Bowl or the playoffs. Obviously, they want the money also, but I would think that winning a Super Bowl is a big thing, I think, to most players. Everybody wants a ring.
Sure. And especially if you've got Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, you've got a strong offensive line, arguably, when he's healthy, the best pass blocking left tackle in football. You've got arguably the best receiver in football on the other side of the field. You've got one of, if not the best touchdown catching tight ends in football coming back. You have a two-headed monster in the backfield with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. You've got.
I hope Dillon can stay healthy, because
that broken rib hurt us in the playoffs.
Yeah, it certainly did, and he is just a real great weapon in getting those first downs with 1 and 2 yards to go. And we've missed a lot of those in the last couple of years where we haven't been able to get it.
Oh, absolutely, and obviously with an offensive-minded play-calling head coach, with an opportunistic defense that looks like it's only getting better. And now we just got a special teams coach that most people feel arguably should be a head coach in this league. I don't know how him and Derek Carr got the Raiders to the playoffs last year, but they did. And a lot of people think that it's a high crime and misdemeanor that guy didn't land a head coaching job somewhere. But I thank my lucky stars that he is now our special teams coach, because he's basically been the best in the business at that particular position for the last 5 or 6 years running. So if anybody can fix the Packers special teams, it's going to be Rich Bisaccia. So now the excuse time is over. So if these people are looking at a team where it's like, hey, where can I go that's basically Super Bowl ready, that's playoff ready, as long as number 12 doesn't choke in the playoffs, it's the Green Bay Packers. So let's take a look at the NFC landscape for a second, and let's just go down the divisions. Let's start out with the NFC East, and I'm going to kind of play a little game here because I'm going to play a little game of what was Aaron and Tom thinking and when were they thinking it. So I don't think Aaron ever really thought about leaving Green Bay. Now, hindsight being 2020, I don't really think he thought about leaving Green Bay as much as, I was torn. No, you weren't. I think it was all a game of leverage, and here's why. Dallas was having problems at the top. Mike McCarthy wasn't getting along with Jerry Jones. Well, what head coach of Dallas ever does? I mean, Jimmy Johnson and all these guys. I mean, Jerry Jones is notorious for Bill Parcells, having issues with head coaches, even good ones. And I don't consider Mike McCarthy that great of a head coach. But even with that, so you're having issues there. Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper are rumored to have this falling out. Amari Cooper is then basically told that he's going to get his walking papers because they're going to hang on to Zeke. I don't know why. I think Pollard is a better running back than Zeke is now in Dallas.
Didn't Amari already sign with Cleveland?
Yes, he's already gone. So Dallas, he's not even in the same conference. He's in the AFC now. Yeah. So Amari Cooper's gone off of Dallas. And Dallas is easily, in my opinion, the best team in the NFC East. And now they just lost Amari Cooper, and you have dissension among the ranks in the upper echelons of the front office. So I don't think Dallas is better than they are last year at this point. I think they're worse. When you look at that.
Well, Amari was kind of playing second fiddle at least the last half of the season to
CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb. Of course I'm an Alabama fan, and I was always a big fan of Amari Cooper.
Sure. Great receiver.
But the Cowboys obviously thought that this other fellow was better.
Well, he was going to make about what the franchise tag is this year. He was going to make just north of $20 million this year, and I don't think Dallas wanted to pay him. But they're paying Ezekiel Elliott the type of money that says Ezekiel Elliott is one of the best 2 or 3 running backs in all of professional football, and quite frankly, he's not.
He used to be, but he's not now.
Well, right, and we don't pay guys for what they used to be as much as maybe we like to say that, but we should not do that. The rest of that division, unless they prove themselves otherwise, it's a 3-alarm tire fire. I mean, the Giants are going to have some type of a quarterback controversy. We don't know what's going on there. Philadelphia made the playoffs. We still don't really know if Jalen Hurts can take the next step. I'd like to see him do so. Washington, again, another team, not real sure what's going on with the Washington wink Commanders. We don't know what's going on there.
Well, they just signed the quarterback from the Colts.
Carson Wentz,
yeah,
right.
Which has not looked particularly good. I didn't understand that at all.
So I think you'd have to say Dallas is easily still the most talented team in that division.
Oh, they got to be favored to win that division hands down.
And they look like they're going through some struggles right now. Then you move to the NFC North, the Packers division. The only team that didn't fire their head coach this year was the Lions. So you know you're in a division that is full of dysfunctionality when the only team that didn't fire their coach, other than the Packers, was the Lions. The laughing stock of the division was the only team who didn't fire their head coach this year. The Bears and the Vikings have both moved on and are both in rebuilding. They both have jettisoned a ton of players. The Bears traded away Khalil Mack. Their nose tackle Goldman is gone. Allen Robinson, their receiver is gone. They're going to try to rebuild this whole franchise around that the rookie quarterback Fields out of Ohio State. So it's a new head coach. Minnesota, they're doing much the same thing. They did re-sign Kirk Cousins to a 1-year, $35 million deal, but a 1-year deal does not say we are committed to you long term. So Minnesota is not someone that you're looking at going, I'm terrified of you. So that's the NFC North. Then the NFC South, until Brady came back, looked like the worst division in football. Carolina, basically no quarterback, trying to trade away Christian McCaffrey. The New Orleans Saints, $34 gazillion over the salary cap. Basically, a quarterback controversy. Neither one of them are basically lighting the world on fire, which is why Sean Payton retired. And Atlanta has an aging Matt Ryan. They already lost Julio Jones, and now Calvin Ridley, their only remaining nuclear weapon that they have, just got kicked out of the league for a year for sports betting. So that division and the Buccaneers were in the stages of dismantling. Ali Marpet retired. You heard all these stories about Ndamukong Suh and Jason Pierre-Paul and all these other guys were saying how they weren't going to be coming back. And then all of a sudden Tom says, I'm coming back. And now all these guys are saying, okay, put on the brakes. Let's all come back and try to do this again. So maybe the Buccaneers are going to be special again this year. And that would be something. And then you look at the NFC West. Russell Wilson leaves Seattle. Now Drew Lock is their starting quarterback. Boy, that sends shivers up my spine. I don't know about you.
That Ridley situation is, because he's definitely, my God, he's a world-class athlete.
Oh, he's incredible. He's a game changer. To lose him for the season, that's crushing.
At his position, there's nobody in the league that's more talented at his position.
Right.
He doesn't have that much experience, but he's a physical freak.
Well, he is the reason Atlanta didn't fight harder to hang on to Julio.
Oh yeah.
They had Ridley. He was their next Julio, and he's every bit as athletic as him. And Calvin Ridley is like I said, he's an absolute game changer, and to lose him for the entire year is just absolutely crushing. You can't replace a Calvin Ridley, and Atlanta's going to be even worse for it. But yeah, that's a crushing blow. So the NFC South, other than the Buccaneers, so far, what do we have? We have the Cowboys, We've got the Packers, and we have the Buccaneers now that Tom has come back. Okay, is Gronk going to re-sign? Is Ndamukong Suh going to re-sign? Is Pierre-Paul going to re-sign? Are all these guys going? Is Leonard Fournette going to re-sign? Because all these guys I'm mentioning, Dad, are free agents. Tampa has to somehow do the same kind of magical math that the Packers are talking about, and they've got to figure out a way to yet once again fit everybody under the salary cap to get them to be able to all go for the Super Bowl again, which if Tampa really wants to, they'll figure out how to do it if these guys all want to come
and Brady
back.
may help them.
Sure he will, because Brady, unlike Rodgers, will sit there and go, I'll play for $10 this year if it means all these other guys can come back, because all I really want is a ring, because Giselle makes twice as much as what I do. So,
Wouldn't that be nice to have a lady like that?
Well, see, Aaron has never truly delivered on any of these marriages. He's going out with all these rich women, but he never marries one. So like Giselle, so he doesn't have that option. I don't know. Anyway, so then our final division we need to talk about is the NFC West. And like I started out with the Seattle Seahawks. Drew Lock is their starting quarterback. They got Noah Fant at tight end now. But Seattle is in full rebuilding mode, so Seattle's not going to be much of anything. The Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray is
question mark.
Yeah, it's a question mark. Kyler Murray is talented, but they just lost Christian Kirk, who was one of their better receivers. Yeah. Kyler Murray has been kind of a diva this offseason. Doing that. Everybody's picking on me because I lost the big game. Okay, I get it, but you're in the NFL now. You won the Heisman Trophy. You got to put on your big boy pants. J.J. Watt, he always seems to be injured. Chandler Jones is now an unrestricted free agent. They got a couple other guys that they need to try to re-sign so that team stays relevant. And even when all those guys were there, they still lost to the cream of the crop of the NFC. You move on to the San Francisco 49ers. Go ahead.
Early part of the year, though, the Cardinals looked like they were the best team in football.
They were undefeated, but if you look at their schedule, Dad, the Cardinals didn't have hardly anybody on their team that they played that had a winning record. The Cardinals played a lot of teams that ended up being non-playoff teams. I think that somebody said something to the effect of the only team that they beat early on that ended up being a play were like the Titans in the first game of the season or something like that. But their victories early on were not against teams that were very impressive, at least at the time. Were not playing very impressive football. Their first loss, as you well know, was against our Packers.
Yes.
Aaron went down there with no starting receivers. Everybody was hurt. He went down there with a bunch of guys from the practice squad and a Jeep driver named Lars and ended up beating them. And everybody's like, yeah, that's what an MVP looks like. Everybody was talking about Kyler Murray for MVP. It's like, well, no, you had Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers in your home stadium, prime time, and Aaron came down there with nobody and picked you guys apart. So that's kind of how it's done. Now let's talk about Aaron's Achilles heel, the San Francisco 49ers. Kyle Shanahan, who knows Matt LaFleur like a forward and backwards. They've been on the same coaching staffs and is somewhat of a mentor to him. Always seems to have our number. The 49ers, for whatever reason, whether it's that running game or how they play defense against us, they did a good job covering Devontae Adams in that playoff game. Our special teams were horrible, and the fact that A.J. Dillon busted his rib playing special teams doesn't help anything, but at some point, the 4-time MVP has to show up and put that team on his shoulders and win us a damn game every once in a while.
Well, he had open receivers. Even the last play of the game when they, or the last pass that he threw in the game, he threw into double coverage with Devontae, and he had Lassard was wide open in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
And he's no rookie. I mean, there's no excuse for missing that. He knows how to throw to his second and third reads, and he just didn't.
He even admitted that. He even admitted that I was missing guys all game because I was looking at Tay. I was looking for Tay the whole game. And he got so addicted to throwing to Tay that there was nobody else that he even looked for. And he pleaded to bring back Randall Cobb. Well, Randall Cobb was open a couple of times that game, and you didn't throw to him. So, but our kryptonite right now tends to be the 49ers. But the San Francisco 49ers are going to be, because we know that they're not going to keep Garoppolo on that team. He's going to count too much against their salary cap. They're going to jettison him, and they're going to be led by second-year guy Trey Lance. And
well, we got beat by what's his name with the big hair that kneeled during the
Colin Kaepernick.
Colin Kaepernick. We got hammered by him in Green Bay at all places.
Yeah.
He ran for over 200 yards that game.
Yeah, he sure did.
So this kid that's coming in sounds a great deal like that. He can, well, obviously he can beat you with his arm, but he's like having another running back in the backfield.
Yeah, well, and that's what Kyle Shanahan likes about him, is because he's a dual threat. But he is a second-year guy, and he hasn't had a whole lot of playing time. So that's going to be something that he's going to have to learn, and he may have to go through some growing pains. So San Francisco is going to have, and San Francisco just lost a big piece of their offensive line, lost one of their starting offensive guards. So they're trying to replace some pieces as well, had to replace a cornerback because they've got some free agency issues going on as well. Now to another team that's got some free agency issues, the LA Rams. The LA Rams, their left tackle, Andrew Whitworth, just retired. He's not going to try to run it back again. So he's done. He was their left tackle that they just won the Super Bowl with. He's done. He won a Super Bowl at age 41. He is not coming back for another year. Von Miller is a free agent. Right now it's about 50-50. He might stay with the Rams, but he might go back to the Broncos too. His team that he said he's always going to be a Denver Bronco, now that Russell Wilson's there. And Russell Wilson is trying to recruit Bobby Wagner, who used to be the inside linebacker for the Seahawks, to come with him to the Denver Broncos. So I would not be surprised to see Von Miller back in a Broncos uniform next year. So Eric Weddle, the safety who came out of retirement to play for the Rams last year just to win a Super Bowl, also retired. So the Rams have already lost a couple of key pieces from that team. And oh, by the way, Odell Beckham Jr., who gave them such a spark last year, he's going to be out until October or November because he tore his ACL in the Super Bowl. So you're going to have a different looking Rams team next year too. So if I'm Aaron Rodgers, now that I've gone through the entire NFC, I'm looking at the landscape of the NFC and I'm like, compared to the AFC where you're looking at Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and Russell Wilson and Derek Carr and guys like Tua and Ryan Tannehill and like rookies last year like Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence, who got a lot more help now in free agency, and your Alabama guy, Mac Jones from the Patriots. You got Lamar Jackson, and you got Baker Mayfield over there in the NFC North.
Most of these guys are going to get nothing but better.
Yeah. I mean, Lamar Jackson is an MVP for crying out loud.
And he can beat anyone on a given day.
Correct. The AFC is absolutely loaded. It's going to be an absolute bloodbath in that conference. Why would you want to move there? Why would you? Now, granted, there's I want to compete against the best. So, yeah, there's that concept. I don't think that's what I think. Aaron's looking for rings right now.
Yeah.
And you look at the NFC, and it's a dumpster fire right now. It really is. I hate to say it. It is. The NFC compared to the AFC, and everything in this world is relative.
The fire isn't near as big, though, that since Brady came back.
Correct.
Because I think most of those players are going to come back, and I realize some of the salaries and stuff are going to have to be adjusted, but I also think that Brady, being Brady, will probably be willing to adjust his contract, stretch it out, whatever they have to do to get the team that he wants back. And I respect him for that.
Well, I do too. I think that, but what do you think? Do you think that Tom also, same as Aaron, probably looked at the landscape in the NFC and said, what the hell? You know what? This is probably my division. The NFC South looks like a dumpster fire. Same as Aaron's, the NFC North. It's not going to be that difficult to get to the playoffs. And we're probably going to have to face each other. And the winner of that game is more than likely going to be the Super Bowl favorite from the NFC.
Yeah, and he's not, I mean, a lot of teams, I think we have a certain intimidation factor with Rodgers, but we sure don't with the Buccaneers. And Brady, Brady beat the Packers when he was in New England, and he's beat them when he's been in Tampa. So
Tom's not afraid of anybody.
No,
Tom's not afraid of anybody.
He's confident.
And that's one thing where when I was looking at this, like I said, from Aaron's perspective before Tom came back, that's why I think Aaron's sitting there a little bit perturbed this morning, because with Tom back, it does change the landscape. Because you remember us talking a few weeks ago, and I said, looking at the schedule, Green Bay's got one of the easiest schedules heading into next year, because there's only one game that they're not going to be favored in, and that's at Buffalo. Because every other game that they play, they've got the Cowboys at home, they've got the Patriots at home, they've got the Titans at home, they've got all these playoff teams from last year at home. The only other two playoff teams that they have that's going to be on the road are the Eagles and the Buccaneers, and Tom retired. Well, guess who's back? Now that Buccaneers-Packers game is going to be a little more interesting, and Green Bay probably won't be favored in it because it's in Tampa Bay. So that's two games now, and that one game right there may very well decide home field advantage in the playoffs.
Well, and last year, at the end of the year, the Buccaneers were technically not the Buccaneers. They were really banged up.
Yeah, and you had all the drama going on from Antonio Brown and all that crap, too.
They were missing major pieces in the last game, and a lot of people weren't healthy. And I think that Tom realized that too, with a couple of things being different. Tampa could have well won that game.
I do too. I think that that Tampa could have beaten the Rams in that game, and then you're basically talking about Tom Brady against Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl, and I would have put my money on Tom Brady.
Oh, sure.
In that game as well. So
well, and if they'd have had the what was their Forte? I think from he was out.
Oh, Leonard Fournette.
Yeah,
Fournette. Yeah, absolutely.
He was out, and he was he gave him that business where the 1 and 2 yard first downs were almost a given with him.
Oh, absolutely. When he's healthy, that offense is on a different level because of what he can give them in the running game.
Well, and he's a hell of a good guy as far as the screen pass is concerned, too. It's like trying to stop a train once he gets rolling.
Yeah, that's what makes A.J. Dillon so difficult for us,
exactly.
too.
I hope
when he's healthy.
They use him more in that idea with the because the Packers have always been kind of known for really good screen passes.
Yes.
And if you get Dillon, because I don't think most people realize how fast he is.
Yeah.
And if you get that big guy outside running downhill, I mean, he is not going to lose yardage.
No. Well, if we could get Aaron to stop throwing the back shoulder throw to Devontae every single play, we might get some more screen passes in there. So from your lips to God's ear,
the other little guy, the Jones in the backfield.
He's a firebug, yeah.
Yeah, he's always explosive.
It's tough to even catch him because I mean he just squirts through tackles and everything because you can barely find him. But he's more quick than he is fast, but you don't catch him either. But both of those guys are incredible backs, and to have both of them. But yes, so I think that changes the landscape of the NFC. I think the Dallas Cowboys. After the Packers and the Buccaneers, I think the Packers and the Buccaneers, I would say, as long as the Packers figure everything out with Devontae and get signed who they need to get signed, I think the Packers and the Buccaneers, I would say, are tied for the favorites. Then I would say you have the Dallas Cowboys, you have the Los Angeles Rams, and then you'd have to see what kind of happens with the 49ers and the Cardinals, because there's a lot of question marks with both of those teams. They've got some people they got to try to re-sign, and you don't quite know what's going to happen at the quarterback position, because what's going on with Kyler Murray is a little bit disturbing in Arizona because you don't know where his head is at. I love his talent, but if he's starting to kind of turn diva this early in his career, it might be kind of difficult for that coaching staff. Now, and the 49ers don't know what they have in Trey Lance. The other thing about the 49ers, so much of that offense and defense runs through two guys, Deebo Samuel on offense and Nick Bosa on defense. If either one of those two guys gets hurt, it changes the landscape of how those teams are able of how that team is able to play. Because if Nick Bosa is not on that field to rush the passer, it changes how San Francisco is able to play defense. If Deebo Samuel, who they had to create an entire new position for, I think they called it wing tailback or something like that, where, I mean, the guy can straight up fly. He's built like a linebacker, but he's a wide receiver, but they put him in the backfield. He's in motion on every play. Yeah. The dude's just scary. I mean, you don't know where he's coming from or where he's going, but the man can do absolutely anything. He even takes the snaps sometimes. I've seen him throwing touchdown passes before. So he can do absolutely anything you ask for on the offensive side of the ball. But if he gets hurt, that changes their entire landscape on offense.
If he was born much sooner in life, he would have been a very star tailback in the old single wing, which most people that are listening to this don't even know what it is.
Right.
And he is just something else. And when he does that sort of thing, he's usually got 2 or 3 blockers out in front of him besides, and he knows how to follow them. He just instinctively cuts in the right direction and everything, and he's big and he's fast and he's something to watch.
And if he doesn't have blockers in front of him, he'll run your ass over.
Oh, yeah, he's a big guy.
Yeah, when I look at Deebo Samuel, I just think instant athlete. Because if you flipped him on the other side of the field and gave him, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks to practice, Deebo Samuel could be one of the best strong safeties in football. I mean, if you just said, "Here, you're going to be a strong safety now." Honestly, I wouldn't bet against him. I think he'd figure it out. I think he'd figure it out, and he'd figure it out because he's just a pure athlete.
He's a pure athlete. One thing I wanted to say when you were talking about the Cowboys. Now, in my opinion, which, I'm an old man, but
sure.
In my opinion, I feel like the Cowboys, their coach, he does not have the respect in the locker room right now, and I don't think he's ever going to get it. As soon as they hit any kind of adversity, I think he's going to come under fire and criticism. And there probably a lot of people in Dallas are still thinking that the coach from the 49ers, or not the 49ers, the New Orleans Saints.
Sean Payton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That he's just kind of there in the wings.
Yeah.
And
I'd be shocked if he's not the head coach of the Cowboys next year.
Well, but this year, I think the Cowboys, the business could be totally wrong, but I just do not think that they feel like he's a lame duck.
Well, and it's tough to win under those circumstances.
Oh, yes.
I don't care how talented your team is. If you're playing under a system that you know is not going to be there next year, I don't care how much talent you have. It's really difficult to win under those sets of circumstances because Mike McCarthy, like you said, a lot like Jason Garrett before him, just kind of seems like a yes man to Jerry Jones, or he has no power. I mean, you heard that Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator, who used to be he's one of the Legion of Boom authors from Seattle, and he was I believe he was the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons for a little while, but he's the defensive coordinator in Dallas, and he did a great job with them last year. But he was rumored to be up for McCarthy's job while McCarthy was still there, and now he's still the defensive coordinator there. How the hell uncomfortable must that be for everybody involved, including Dan?
Well, you and I talked several years ago when the Packers left McCarthy go, and I remember you saying you felt like the game had passed him by.
Yeah, it did.
And he's not considered any type of offensive genius or that like some of these young coaches are, and he's very conservative and cautious. And the game is
horrible game manager. Calls.
Oh yeah,
throws the red flag at all the dumbest times. Never wins a challenge. I mean,
we had a number of games that the Packers lost over the years that time management in the game was a big thing, and that's a coach's responsibility.
Yeah, you could attribute it directly to his time management. There were 3 or 4 games last year that the Cowboys were in that they could have had a better shot at winning had it not been for the boneheaded time management of one Mike McCarthy. But that's why I said you're basically going into what feels a whole hell of a lot like, whether it's Dan Quinn or Sean Payton waiting in the wings, it feels a whole hell of a lot like a lame duck presidency. And it's very difficult. Just like in a lame duck presidency, you don't get a lot of legislation passed that last year, do you?
No.
I mean, it's going to be very difficult to get a lot of stuff done in a year where a lot of people, most people in the NFL, everybody you watch on ESPN or Fox Sports or everybody, most of them are like, I don't see Mike McCarthy there next year. And I don't either. And I haven't been in the business anywhere near as long as they have. And I don't see McCarthy there next year either. So,
well, I think that's as much of a problem, if not more, than anything to do with the Cowboy personnel.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that the locker room and the team is going to have belief in him. Mm-hmm. And it's very, very important that a team has belief in their head coach if they're going to be a big-time winner or get to the Super Bowl.
Right, right.
And I just don't think McCarthy's that guy.
Right. So, let's talk about schedule a little bit, next year we've got, I talked about some of it. We know we have the teams in our division, so that's 6 games. We do have some playoff teams. Our road playoff games are largely the Bills, the Buccaneers, and the Eagles. 2 of those 3 games where we are almost certainly going to be the underdogs in at this point now. I would say the Buccaneers and the Bills, more than likely we're going to be underdogs in both of those games. I'd be shocked if, unless one of those 2 teams starting quarterbacks is hurt before we play them. The Eagles,
or they have, I don't know what. At this point, we don't know at what point in the season we're going to play them.
That's true.
Correct?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, if
the schedule hasn't come out yet.
If somehow we play the Buccaneers in October and they've lost half of their games and we've won all of ours, then it's probably not going to be that way. But I doubt that we're going to see that. I think if the Buccaneers come back with Brady and his full complement of personnel that he's had,
they'll make us play him on opening night.
Well, that might be too.
And
that might be better than having to play him in November. But
true. But like I said,
I don't want to play him in September or that in Tampa though, because that's just when you're not used to the heat like that and the humidity. The fourth quarter comes around, and the team that lives down there has definitely got an advantage.
And Green Bay never plays well in Florida. Green Bay's just not a good Florida team.
No, they haven't been a good West Coast team either.
Well, if you look at Aaron Rodgers' record in Florida, it's dreadful. I mean, as good as his record is against the Bears, it's almost flip when he has to go and play in Florida. So I don't like having to play in Florida. So, but beyond that, you play 2 other divisions besides your home division. So the 2 divisions we play this year are the NFC East and the AFC East. So that's actually not too bad because when you look at those 2 divisions, other than the Bills and the Cowboys, nobody really jumps off the page as terrifying. And we play both the Cowboys and the Patriots at Green Bay. We also play the Tennessee Titans and the LA Rams at Green Bay. Those 2 games are based on our win-loss record.
Those are awfully good teams, though.
Right.
Or at least last year they were.
And it's so you're going to end up having to play some good teams. All that being said, it's nicer to be able to play them in your home stadium than on the road. And I get the whole fast track thing in Green Bay and stuff like that. But again, last year we were undefeated until the playoffs.